I begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land upon which this podcast is recorded, and I pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging.
Dark Mirror.
Dark Mirror.
Dark Mirror.
Dark Mirror.
Dark Mirror with Jessicka Anne.
Today's episode with Susie Kim was such a fun one to record. If you're not familiar with Susie Kim, she is a dating and relationship coach with a practical and playful approach to love. She's a former lawyer and believes that love isn't about luck, it's a skill. And she helps busy, smart people master those skills. And Susie's journey into relating is something that we unpacked during the episode. One of the reasons I was so excited to have this conversation with Susie, apart from her mastery in the space of dating and relationships, is that I see relating as one of the most fundamental, important skills that we can master in leadership. It doesn't just apply to dating, it's far-reaching, and we unpack some of the implications why in the episode. So without further ado, here's my episode with Susie Kim. Susie Kim, welcome to Dark Mirror. So excited to have this conversation with you. What was it that had you get into the relating space?
Oh, okay. We're starting there. Well, really, the originating story is my family of origin, right? And when I was little, I had this fear, like my biggest fear in life was that I wouldn't be able to be a good mother / I wouldn't be able to have a sustainable, like healthy relationship. They just felt like these impossible crosses to bear. And, clearly, my mother, beautiful as she is, she wasn't very emotionally available or tuned, right? So it kind of starts there. And so, but I had this question, I had this quest from when I was a child of I need to figure this out. So I pretty much spent my whole life just figuring it out. I need to figure out how love works. I need to figure out how relationships work. And that was just my personal work on the side, from, when I found therapy and Neo-Tantra at 21 and dove into personal development work and was dating a lot and relating a lot. And then, let's skip forward because, I was a lawyer for about 7 years, maybe 6.5 years. And then I went through my Saturn return. And at that time, I was in a relationship. I had a house in the Northern Rivers and I had a great job, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, okay, cool, time to jump ship. And I quit that job, sold the house, broke up from the relationship all in a very short time. And kind of hopped over into, great, now it's time to actually do the work that, and work in this space. But it was never a plan. It just came upon me and then it became obvious that that's what I had to do. Yeah.
So from our conversations previously, I'm familiar with parts of your story with the Saturn return and that realization that the life that you had built up into that point was slipping away. Was there a point when you questioned whether or not this was like a soul nudge, whether or not you were going mad? What was that unraveling like?
Yeah, well, it took a long time. Even when I was breaking up from that relationship, I remember I spent a whole week specifically calling in strength from my soul to help me make that decision because it was a great relationship. Our families really got along. We had all these 3 different groups of mutual friends that we regularly went on holidays with. It was a really lovely, nice relationship. There was, and I felt so terrible just springing it upon him in this way. And funnily enough, oh my God, yes, I spent a whole week calling in. I could hear it though, right? It's there's these glimpses of, nah, it's not it. You've got to end this. And so much of my personality didn't want to. It would have been so much easier not to, and we also worked together. It was just complicated. And so, that's what I had to keep fueling, the soul courage to please help me leave because I don't want to, but I know that it needs to happen. And then on the way home, we had dated for exactly 4 years. And on the way home, it was exactly our 4-year, the eve of our 4-year anniversary. And when we started dating, it was, it's 1 May, which is, the opposite of Halloween, but it's sort of our Halloween in the Southern Hemisphere. And then when I was driving home to have that conversation, it was April 30. And when we started dating, it was a new moon. And then as I was driving home, it was a full moon and I could see it perfectly. And I was like, okay, that was just, I'd already made the decision, but it was a confirmation of okay, this really is time to wrap up and it's right. So that's what it took. It was, and there was a big fallout, obviously. Yeah. It wasn't easy. It was pretty hard actually. Yeah.
I can imagine it would have been. The reason I wanted to ask is obviously one of the things I really wanted to pick your brain on is this nuance between like those soul knowings, like those unshakable, bone deep waves of wisdom that sometimes come out and knock our feet out from under us, versus this fantastical idea of there being the one and that we are on some path to manifest them, call them in. Was there a point where you kind of wrestled with that in making the decision?
When I was breaking up with him, I wasn't thinking about anything about the one or anything about future relationships. I was just seeing the ending of a perfectly beautiful relationship that was very much on track to, you know, having children and getting married, if, you know, probably because our families would want that, etc. You know, so yeah, it was just a big scary thing. But it was so interesting with that, because I think that was like, it was like sitting right at the edge of my consciousness, right at the back of my consciousness, but it had tapped me a few times. Like it had tapped me maybe 8 months before and then 6 months before, and then I'd sort of laid it to rest, you know, and then it just like came up with a vengeance, and I couldn't ignore that knowing anymore. Yeah. Yeah. But interestingly, on the work front, right? Because I think what also put me, because when I was a lawyer, because I worked for the government, there was no social media, you know, because I was doing criminal prosecuting. You're not like influencing. I don't know. A lot of people do have accounts now, but at that time I had no social media. It was very, very small. But when I decided to go into this something else, I did do the, I spent time at a mystery school, and, you know, it's questionable anyway. But anyways, it was very helpful for me at the time. And what I remember is there was a big ritual where we all were like calling down something from our soul and declaring it, right, in this big circle. And I remember at that time, this is when I was still a lawyer. I'd just taken some leave. But what really came through so strong at that time was, I'm going to get on social media. Right, to bring through a message. And so that was literally what it was. And it terrified me to say that. It felt really stupid and small. Like people were saying really big things and whatever their soul missions were. And I was just like, I'm just going to get on social media. And that came through really clearly. And I think when I then made the change to go into the business and do the work that I'm doing now, I had to do that work, which was highly embarrassing and highly cringy. And again, something that my personality absolutely, I mean, now loves it, but at the time found it so embarrassing to do and so cringy, and, you know, like working it out. And yeah, so that was interesting as well. Yeah, just in terms of a soul nudge and then the actual human follow through.
So there was a clear nudge that there was a message on your heart to be shared. When did it become clear that it was around this idea of relationship?
It became clear, like mainly like through the work and the clients that I was helping. Because in the beginning, it was more around, the spiral, right? Because I was a spiral practitioner and kind of just transformation. And I was working with people who were like a little bit spiritual or like quite spiritual, but also mainstream, wanting to deepen into their purpose or wanting more aliveness or connection or something. And then slowly it just became so clear that I was getting more and more, and I was focusing more and more on relationships, because that is actually my area of genius, you know? So yeah, so it just revealed very, very organically. Yeah.
I know one of your zones of genius is really speaking to almost like the former version of you that was in that space of, you know, maybe having the high profile career, something like that, actually develop the skills to move into relationship and pursuing things that way. Were these the kind of people you're attracting through the spiral? What was it that had you realize that you were kind of helping past versions of you?
Well, yeah, I guess those people have always been able to, that's interesting. I definitely went through a period of feeling quite exposed, being on social media, and then, but also having a lot of people, sure, like I still work with lawyers or, you know, people who are just like in normal business world, not like spiritual business world or professions. Yeah, reaching out, the ones who are like actually secretly quite spiritual. And then now I've just accepted that there are a whole lot of people like that out there, you know? But then also I love working with like the super woo as well, you know? That's fine too. Super woo, but grounded. That's probably how I identified to some extent. Yeah.
Me too.
Exactly. That's why we get along.
Exactly. I just said, yeah. So with the patterns that are kind of emerging in the way that people are approaching relationships. So as you mentioned, you have these people that are maybe in the broom closet, let's affectionately call it that.
Yep.
And then you have these people that are super woo. Are you sort of
Yes.
seeing the similar patterns that are holding people back from finding fulfillment in relationships?
Yeah, that's really interesting because you know what? Of course, right? The actual patterns are kind of the same, right? It always comes down to the same stuff, usually like the same range of stuff, which is in the emotional realm, I would say, right? Because relating is all about the emotional realm. I would actually even say a lot of business stuff comes down to the emotional realm and your past and your conditioning and your traumas around being seen and success and failure, right? It's all of that. So I see that with mainstream people, they justify it in a particular way. And with spiritual people, they justify it in a different way. But it's kind of pointing to the same thing, you know? So it's like with spiritual people, yeah, there is this, I guess because we have this whole dimension of magic and spirituality and getting into the right frequency and manifesting the ideal partner in a particular way and just drawing them to us. You know, we've got this whole world available to us that mainstream people kind of touch on. But in the spiritual world, there are like whole just schools and trainings and ways of thinking that are really available and really common to talk about. And astrology, you know, all these different models and frameworks that we can use. And so, yeah, I guess I see with the more spiritual people, and I'm seeing, I just see waves of it all the time coming and coming, but I feel like there's another one right now happening, is this tendency to want to like, basically like wrap up whatever's happening in your love life and lack thereof and struggles in it in just magical language, right? Or spiritual language. And then you create this grand mythical narrative of why something's happening or not happening. And then kind of just justifying it that way. And it's like, maybe you're just not very good at relating. Like, have you ever thought about that? Maybe you're just making the wrong choices. Like, you know, like that's often what I want to say. I want to say, hey, babe, like if that's helping you, and guys do it too, but it's like, if that's helping you, I get it. But at some point, I guess what frustrates me is at some stage, it's not helping you anymore. It's great to have compassion. It's great to have understanding. It's great to understand that, yes, there might be some past life entanglements that are showing up right now, but like how many more times do you want to let that be the reason why you're choosing the wrong people? How many karmic lessons do you need to learn?
It's such a big thing. One of the things that stood out to me was this idea of maybe you're just not good at relating. And I think that this can be such a big blind spot because, and here's a really weird metaphor, but one of my friends is an ultra marathon runner. And what he spoke, like, because naturally he's competed several times. So now people ask him how they can start running. And what he says is how many people aren't aware that running is a skill. Because we have legs, everyone just assumes they can run. And he said there's actually parts of training yourself into this. And I feel that relating is such a similar thing. It's like, well, I mean, I'm human, you're a human, let's do human things. But
yeah,
what does it mean to be not good at relating?
Yeah, it means there's either some blocks that you're unaware of, some blind spots in the way that you show up, right? In the way that your emotional architecture reacts or responds or avoids, right? Or lashes out. Like, and it's sure, it's like your emotional architecture, it's your nervous system architecture, it's your family history, it's your cultural conditioning, it's all of that stuff and how that impacts your views on what should be happening or what should not be happening, your emotions, your behaviors, right? So it's basically just like, I think when you're saying you're not good at relating, it's like, what do you, like, basically, like for me, it's so clear, like, hey, it's almost like so clear because I've broken it down in like pretty much an almost autistic way of like, it's pretty clear, you know, if this happens, you do this, you do this, you do that, you do this, you do that, you do this, you do that, you do this, you do that. Perfect. Right. And then sure, some of that is holding things in uncertainty or holding things in compassion or whatever, right? You can't control everything, but there's basically like, hey, if you know how to show up as you and you know how to communicate well and you know how to handle your own uncertainty and handle rejection and you know how to handle, you know, like know how to be open as a person, like there's basically like a bunch of discrete skills that go into relating. And you are good or not good at any one of those things for different reasons. And sometimes the reasons really don't matter. Like, I think the reasons are, sure, go explore that in therapy. I'm also a therapist. I love that. But also, It's same as in business, right? It's like there's all these blocks. You can explore that. You can get at the root cause. Amazing, amazing, amazing. And that's really helpful, cannot be understated. But also there's just a set of skills that you just may need to get better at by practicing and refining and failing and embarrassing yourself. And then you eventually get better at it. So yeah, I just see it. I'm like being good at relating is just knowing how you respond and how you behave and how you hold, the different aspects of what happens in this whole realm. Exactly the same as in business, I think.
I totally agree. It's really interesting though that like personal development, and of course, like I love it. I'm in it. I teach it, and
Yes.
it becomes almost like this. I want to use the word solipsism, but it's rather than actually face the vulnerability of where things break down in that interpersonal space. I'm just going to keep looking at my own navel and hope that if I keep working on my own navel, that's going to translate to what happens here. And I feel like magical thinking really perpetuates that. And so some people listening are already going to know what we mean by that. But what are some of the things that you feel allow people to keep masking their vulnerability behind the stories? What kind of language is often thrown around?
Yeah. So, I mean, in the relating world, a lot of it's like working on your self-love journey, which is very important, very important. Working on your frequency and just like getting into the right frequency for love to find you. Again, nothing wrong with this. It's just when you're doing it as an avoidance mechanism, right? Working like kind of waiting for, it's funny, right? Because I feel like we sort of broke down the Disneyfication of love and that, but it kind of comes back still through soulmate language. Now I think a lot of people aren't talking about the one, or what's that other thing that people say? It's like, now I've suddenly forgotten. Not the spirit. There was like a documentary about it. It's like
twin flame.
Yes. Right. I feel like twin flames has died down in popularity to somewhat, right? Because now we're all like, oh no, twin flame's not good, but there's still something around like, past life loves, or like knowing that there's someone just out there waiting for you and you can feel them in the ethers. And again, I'm not saying like none of this is not, it's not that it's not valid, because it can be. It's just when are you deploying it, when really the thing that would actually just help you and, again, like to use personal development language, move the needle forward is not just like bathing yourself in like the waters from Avalon or whatever and like saying a love ritual to yourself and getting into your heart. Like, that is so great. But maybe the actual thing would be to go out and meet some people and, talk to them and figure out like what your actual blind spots are in relating and figure out why you are in fact dating the wrong kinds of people and figure out how to recognize the right kinds of people and do that.
It's so big. Like I remember, like I don't know what your opinion on this is, so I'll be curious as I bring this up. I remember when I was before I met my fiance, one of the exercises I was told to do was to write a list of everything that I wanted in an ideal partner and to become the list.
Oh yeah.
Do you feel like that's something that actually works? Is that something that keeps people in unrealistic expectations? What's your take?
Yeah, it's a funny one, because I actually really have a lot of thoughts about this. I'm like, a lot of it comes down to, right, if you have been raised in a really healthy relating model and you already have like the blueprints for what is like healthy, secure, sustainable love, then sure, that list might be a really mature list. But a lot of these things, it's like you need to understand like what are your blueprints? Like where are you actually on the scale of real maturity and understanding what love actually is? Not just basing it on your sort of immature, fantastical imagination of what you would like love to be, right? It's like, are you basing it on just like your romantic immaturity and delusion ultimately? Because then it's like, I don't think it's that helpful to have a list like that. I think a lot of people put all sorts of stupid things into this list and then, rule out people who would be perfectly amazing partners for you based on some criteria, right? Yeah, it's interesting because the other aspect that comes into it for me and is like, look, because like Asians are also very romantic and they have this side too as well. But there is something so like, I don't know, there's something so like hyper individualist. It's kind of like almost like capitalist and being like, these are all the things that I want and demand in my relationship. And it's like, you know, as you would know, like when you're in a long-term relationship, they're just a lot of like really leaning into love and union with another is accepting them as they are. And there's a lot of just giving over into that. And we can't control for that when you with someone else, like when you're with someone for a long time.
It's such a core foundational part of relationship. Like I don't do relationship coaching. It's not my expertise. However, obviously everything touches everything, and the people I mentor, sometimes relationship does come up. And often one of the things that I say is if you can't fully choose this person as they are now, you're not choosing them. Like just end it. You can't and choose someone in the expectation that they will change, because it's unfair on them and it's unfair on you. And so I feel like that maturity, as you say, to actually identify where we're coming from with our desires is huge. I also see that's where a lot of the spiritual space, when we get talking about feminine, masculine dynamics, I don't actually think we even have the maturity to handle what those labels actually mean a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's interesting too, isn't it? Yeah, because I think those are really powerful, potent concepts. But it's like, what level of awareness and consciousness are you coming at it from? You know, because it's not like it doesn't work. It's not like any of this is invalid in and of itself. You know, it's like just how, like, yeah, it's really just is like, how mature are you? How myopic are you becoming by focusing on this thing that feels fun or pleasurable or interesting to you at risk of avoiding all this other much more boring practical stuff.
I'd love to know, like, in the most loving way possible, what kind of wants you having to shake people awake the most? Like, what's the one pattern that if you could kind of give people a loving slap and actually get them to open their eyes to, what's that thing?
I mean, you know, to be fair, actually, the thing that annoys me the most is this. It's actually quite big in the mainstream. It's actually when people, mostly women, say, just men are dogs, you know? Like, there's just like no one out there. That probably does actually annoy me the most. And I feel in some way controversial saying that, because yes, like there are studies that show that women are out earning and out educating men, especially in the US. And yes, there is a big swing towards the conservative incel culture, which is very unattractive, you know, in men, especially in younger men. And so it's like, there are some stats to say, like, you know, there are more women who are basically like positioned better, I suppose, socially, which is a factor. But yeah, I think it's like, I've had quite a few clients who basically have realized as they're working with me that it's quite easy to slide into that way of thinking online, because it's very popular, especially amongst a lot of female influencers. It's very popular to just say, to just rain down on the state of the dating world and the state of men and how bad it all is and how everyone should just save their eggs and create communes with women, which I think is lovely if you want that. Yeah, that's actually what comes up for me. Yeah.
I can really resonate with a lot of that, because sure, this is a big spoiler alert for people that have followed me for a while, but like, yes, I'm a feminist, but feminist in the traditional sense of the idea of gender equality, right? Like men and women having equal access and opportunity. But this rhetoric around I'd choose the bear, for example, right?
Yeah.
How do we disentangle what is kind of an existential fear and look at where it's maybe what was existential has taken roots into something that's actually quite toxic and perpetuating the problem that it's claiming to solve?
How do we disentangle? I think it's like when I'm speaking to someone, it's like, well, what do you want? You know, because I think it's like, and where's your acceptance around it? So it's like, if you still want a relationship and maybe a family or a life partnership with a man, then like, how is this narrative and this viewpoint which is very powerful, helping you, and what is it kind of feeding in you? And where is it attaching? Where is it convenient for you? But, on the other side, I'm very much like, like I identify as queer. I know a lot of queer people. And it's like, if you genuinely want to relate with women, because there is a softness and a more relational side in like lesbian relationships or, like woman to like female relationships, it's very much more soft and caring and considerate and it's all those things. So it's like, hey, if that's also what you want, it's like, that's great. Right. Or if you've just landed at this place of, I want to be like Enya and live in a castle with my 50 cats or whatever she does, then it's like, great, go do that and go pursue your art. I don't know. Like to me, it's like, if you're just in a state of complaining and bitterness and resentment, it's like, is this how you want to live your life? Like, where's your life force going?
It's so massive. I feel like this is also one of those, a bit like the idea of getting to the right frequency. It becomes a protective narrative. Like, even if you are someone that desires to relate with a man and now you've constructed this whole idea around how men are terrible, even though I desire them, I now get to hide behind feeling righteous as opposed to actually letting my heart open.
Oh, huge. So huge. Yeah. Yeah, so huge. And really, like, when it comes down to it, a lot of the women that I work with, they've had massive hurts. Some have had, also abuse histories or really, really toxic relational dynamics or things from childhood, and like things that genuinely they need to protect themselves, right? Or they needed to have protected themselves, right? Against men. So like all of that can come into it because it can feel so vulnerable to then actually open to someone, right? But yeah, we usually reach a point where, like through working together, where there's, it's like they get to see that it's a choice, and there is a way for them to open now to the real desire that's in their heart, right? And actually be in that openness, which is also who they already are, right? And who they were before anything, right? Which is really their essence. And just who they are when they feel safe, right? Who they are when they're with their friends, who they are when they're in their most, right, relaxed, connected state. They get to be that while also protecting themselves, right, in ways that they couldn't before. So I think that that's so important because it is sometimes just the hurts and the scars that have us go, and then justify it. Yeah. So that probably actually is how more mainstream people justify it, Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of the same thing. Like they're exposing so much of that from like the manosphere in cell culture as well. This idea that men are socialized to be not women, and so therefore view women as inferior at the same time as desiring them. And it's so complex. But I got quite emotional as you were speaking to pulling through that authentic essence and actually allowing themselves to feel secure in themselves at the same time as opening their heart. If you were going to give somebody a blueprint of how to start this, because obviously you've got your incredible program, Easeful Dating, like what are the things that you start to seed for people to let these walls down a bit without feeling like they're kind of exposing themselves?
I think sometimes for like on a very practical level, and it's also good for the mind to see this and kind of bring that into conscious awareness. It's actually just, hey, how good are you at speaking your needs? And can you practice that with men? And can you back yourself that if you feel uncomfortable, you will be able to cut it off, or you'll be able to say something, or you'll be able to leave. Sometimes it's like just so practical. It's just like, hey, you need to know that you've actually got yourself, right, in situations with men where you don't feel good. Because I think like if you want to open, you need to know how to close. And if you know how to close, then you can open. And that kind of what creates this safety of like, you don't owe anyone anything. And sometimes this is the other thing that comes in as well is sometimes people like they're so kind. They don't want to be mean. They don't want to cause there's all these reasons why you don't want to close to someone. You don't want to reject someone. You don't want to judge someone, all this stuff. And it's like, no. Like when you're dating and when you're relating, like you owe people just the basics of respect. But when that is not coming your way, you do not owe them anything. Like you just get out of there, don't worry about it. Like, so I mean, there are all sorts of, it's a jungle out there. I often say to people, it is a jungle out there, right? It's like the world is a jungle, whether you're in business or whether you're in the workplace, whether you're in dating world, it's a freaking jungle and not everyone has your best interests at heart. And some people are dangerous. So it's like, do you have your own back? Because that, you only really, it's like as soon as you know that it's not for you, you can just get out of there.
I got goosebumps as you mentioned about that ability to, in order to be able to open, you also need to know how to close. Like I see this, like even with people that I mentor that are running businesses and have teams, and how that ability to not hold a boundary with the team then becomes, reactivity and almost like that needing to micromanage as a result. Mm-hmm. So it's such a core pattern to be able to not self-abandon, to be able to advocate for your needs and to call people into that level of maturity to meet you inside that. It's like it's a life skill. Yes, of course, dating is a skill too, and it's just like it's so transferable. Totally. Massive.
Yeah. And I think there is something around like, where do we get caught? Because it's always this question of I don't want to be mean or I don't want to be or something, right? Something makes us uncomfortable, and I think there's a place for just being really neutral about it. I think that's quite helpful.
Yeah, like what if it doesn't have to be an act of violence to say no?
Totally. And okay, I love this idea from that book. Oh, it's like, what is it? The Gifts of Imperfection or something like that. No, sorry, that's Brené Brown, not that one. This is the one that's like, you don't have to be liked. Oh my goodness, what's that one? Nobody has to like you. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like the philosopher talking to the, oh my God, no one has to.
I do know the one, but it escapes me as well. I know the one you're speaking about, but I can't. The Courage to be Disliked?
Yes. Absolutely. Sorry. The Courage to be Disliked. So I think one of the most powerful concepts is what's your task and what is someone else's task. And it is not your task to manage their feelings of reaction. It could be your task to be like kind and communicate in some way that feels aligned and congruent for you. Yeah. So it's just like, when are you trying to exactly micromanage their response?
And I know you and I were having a really brief chat about this beforehand, but just even seeing the ramifications of that inability to have a healthy disagreement or to navigate things in a more neutral way, and how that's even echoing into the way that we navigate our current political / cultural, like culture war situation that seems to be occurring in the West. It's like, how is it that someone accesses this space of neutrality even more, particularly in those impassioned moments?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's like, it's almost like it is a reflection of your capacity and your ability to zoom out a little bit and not take things personally. But I think I'm like, I need to put a context to it. If you give me a context, I'll be able to zero in a bit more. Which
I was
context?
Political about making anything too loaded.
Yeah, I'm like, is it the political context, the dating context, or the business context?
I'm just going to speak to like my position for a moment. So,
yes.
Watching a lot of people's response to the federal budget, and how obviously they have their idea of their own personal hero's journey and their narrative, and where decisions made on a federal or political level now intercept with that hero's journey narrative, and now the government gets painted as the villain, regardless of whether or not the policy is good or not. And then we have a bunch of people taking to the internet as a result. And I feel like there's almost, from that perspective we were talking before, around receiving something that you disagree with, receiving somebody's boundary, receiving a no, and then how it becomes so deeply personal that it now becomes almost like we take up a vigilante stance against that thing.
Oh, that's so interesting. And do you see that that's what the One Nation Party is doing so well right now?
Yes, I sort of see them really capitalizing on this, that woundedness. It's like, well, no, this is about me and, like, you know, my journey and the things that I wanted and the things I was told that I was entitled to. And it's like, I feel like it's just that magnification of the same pattern. It's just like, you know, someone's told me no, and I can't hold that no.
It's so interesting because as you're saying that, it's like, yeah, there is just, and what I see from One Nation is they don't really have a policy. They're just spouting a whole lot of blame. And, you know, in times of, I guess, social, economic, you know, just wide ranging pressure, it's like, yeah, blame the immigrants, right? Blame the people on permanent residency visas or whatever, you know, like they're just sort of blaming anyone really, blame parental leave payments, like blame anything, right? Yeah. And I guess that is kind of what happens is when there's something that seems like it's impacting you and you do take it personally, it's like, which way do you go? Do you go into blame and attack, or do you go into like defensiveness, or do you go into like hiding and freezing and essentially stonewalling?
Yeah, I love how you picked up what I was putting down. I was trying to get to the point that I was saying without adding too many assumptions into it. It's like, well, my assumption is this and this, and this is the behavior that I've observed.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yes.
that's my assumption, everyone. I think everyone's a little bit butthurt about what they thought their future was going to be.
It's really interesting. Yeah, it's really interesting because it is, right? It's like the great Australian dream, if you want to call it that, which we're now like, oh, we don't have that anymore. Yeah, mainly because the boomers, our parents, own all the property because of the tax cuts that the Howard government brought in. Anyway, you know what I mean? It's like, clearly that's what the stats are showing, you know, like, oh my God. Yeah, it's really wild, isn't it? I heard the actual stats because there's all this content now about, hey, let me just break down what Pauline Hanson is saying and why it's incorrect, right? There's a lot of these videos and people don't seem to care is the other thing that I find really interesting because it's so, yeah, like there's a lot of stats around, hey, actually not that many foreign people own property as a percentage. It's mainly white Australians, you know, but people don't care about the facts in this climate. It's all
and
about
I feel like it's that same core relational pattern that you were speaking to, though. It's like that inability to hear a no, to actually receive it with a degree of neutrality. It's like it immediately just accelerates into reaction.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I don't even care what you say next. I've already decided that you're the problem.
Yeah.
And so therefore I'm going to go and gather evidence to the contrary and ignore anything that doesn't agree with my bias.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's frustrating. I'm like, oh, yes. And, you know, and you see it in the micro, right? I see it with couples who it doesn't matter what you're saying anymore. I'm triggered now. And I'm going to start stacking evidence for my case and why you're wrong. And I guess, you know, the way out of it really on a micro level is, unfortunately, it is like bringing compassion and creating space so that the person who is triggered can actually get a little bit assuaged enough for them to like settle their mettle and then maybe connect a bit deeper into what's actually going on for them. And then that gives them the spaciousness to then come out and be able to also connect with whatever's going on for the other person. So it's
like I know this is such a fluency to you, but even that word connect, it's like I feel that on so many levels, like, yes, 100% that interpersonal level, but like the collective level, that ability to connect, and just how much, like, as I said, that the current cultural war, political discourse is from this inability to really connect in a meaningful way. And I think that the foundations really do start in our ability to just have one-on-one relationships and feel secure in who we are inside those things.
Yeah, I mean, you know, now this is, I mean, when we're talking about collective communication, now I'm talking about, you know, Mamdani and his incredible campaign, you know, because he was showing up and connecting a lot in person at all these different events, you know, really on the foot. And then all of it was presented, you know, in such a compelling way on the socials. And he had like kind of a radical message in some ways, but it was so palatable, I think, because he was trying to meet the people where they're at, like via really compelling social media, essentially, which I know this is sort of taken in a different way, but yeah, I thought that was pretty incredible, just how he's able to, I guess the principle is really, can you communicate in a way that the other person can hear?
It's huge. It's a big skill.
It's such a big skill, right? And I guess in some ways that's also marketing, right?
Literally. That's kind of like where I would keep pulling this point. It's like, yes, it's like, we think that, this is about me and my partner arguing about who's doing the dishes tonight, but it's like, this is also touching your marketing. It's touching the way you communicate with clients. It's the way that you're talking to your team. This ability to be able to communicate in a way that someone can actually receive you and you can make a way forward together is the foundation for pretty much anything you want to achieve ever.
Yeah, right. And a lot of it comes down to how much can you understand, right, who you're trying to communicate with and their value system and speak it in their language to make them care about it. And I think in relationships, you end up doing it naturally. If you're trying to campaign for something in your relationship, you put it through their values lens. Me and my husband do it all the time.
I like the choice of word, campaign.
These things, we have long running campaigns.
Yeah, it's true. Like I've definitely received reflections from my partner where, I've come at it from my value set and it's just been completely in one ear and out the other.
Totally.
This is actually being able to speak to what's meaningful for somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's huge. I think that's part of like when you're it's a part of just the mastery, really, I think, in relationships. Yeah.
Which, to bring it full circle, is almost that exact opposite of the magical thinking that kind of keeps us fixed in this idea that there is this destiny that doesn't call us into question around how aware are we of the world of the person we're wanting to relate with.
Yeah, it's so interesting because now the more and more I think about this magical thinking, it just feels so, it's like it's kind of selfish and siloed. Like it's all about you. It's all about you. And when we're really opening up to love, right? Because I also work with love as the biggest teacher, really, right? Love as the biggest teacher. And it's like when I'm talking about these, it's like we all have so many projections on what love is and how love looks and how love feels and how love appears and how it comes to us. But when you're really opening yourself up to how love works, well, you suddenly realize you see all the stuff that isn't relevant to love, all your mind's ideas. And there's actually there is a lot of letting go of egoic assumptions, right? Or even personal just assumptions, and a giving over to actually letting love show you.
Oh, love, I always speak about it as the ultimate ego annihilation. That the thing that's going to keep handing your ass to you again and again.
In a loving way.
In a loving way. But one of the ultimate teachers to your point. So if you had a billboard that the world could see on love, what are Susie Kim's love message?
Interesting one, because instantly I'm like, yeah, but am I going for a frequency message that only some people will get? Or am I going for like the most cut through? Because a lot of people are seeing this billboard. That's when my strategic brain is on.
Maybe it's a holographic billboard that, alters depending on your level of consciousness.
That's so funny. I actually think like the idea that I would like to kind of get people to see, to even work with love as its own much larger entity, is that idea of, you're in a lifelong journey with love itself, and all the people that you enter into these intense romantic journeys, they're just placeholders. So I think it's something around that, because I think that helps people see it a bit more clearly of like, okay, it's not just about this person. It's like there's a bigger thread going on and they're just giving me access to, it's almost like they're like a prism drawing it in for me in the 3D.
Yeah, I like that. It's It's really true, and I can feel the frequency of that as you articulated it. Even just last night in preparation for this interview, I actually saw a reel pop up, and they were talking about like all of the horror stories that they're hearing right now about dating. There's somebody that's wanting to get started dating. What do you feel it is to actually date in a really functional, healthy way in 2026? Like how do people get started?
Yeah, I think it's to understand that, of course, right, there's lots of bad behavior out there. And I think it's to firstly, get really clear on what it is that you're looking for, get your mindset around that quite clear. Know that every dating experience you have, you get to learn from, right? Because it's going to give you insight. Like dating is the ultimate, and relating in general is the ultimate, awareness and growth journey if you allow it to be, and you're going to have a better experience if you just go with that. Right. And so like anything, right? So I think it's like, get clear on what you want, start to understand what's in the way, and then just start viewing it through that lens as dating as a growth journey, and just start working on getting closer and closer to what you want, because I always see with my clients, there's a bit of an arc that happens, like a growth arc that happens where they start to, as they're practicing these skills, they start to date better and better people. They start to have better and better experiences. And then there is a threshold that happens where people are suddenly like, oh my God, I'm dating, everyone I'm dating is nice and lovely. This has never happened before. And then people are like, oh my God, is this what dating is meant to feel like? And I'm like, yeah, this is what it can feel like. This is why it can be really enjoyable and just respectful and lovely, because you have learned how to choose that and recognize that, and whatever's been in the way, which can be deep childhood stuff, all that stuff, all of that you've worked through that specifically in the dating realm, right? To not fall into that. Yeah. So it's keep your eyes on the prize. Keep going.
I feel like and to echo back your point, dating is a skill. Susie's got an incredible program called Easeful Dating, which I believe she'll be offering next year again. So make sure you keep tuned for that. Where is it best for people to connect with you?
Yeah, so they can find me on Instagram at Susie Kim Love, also on Facebook, Susie Kim Love, or my website, susiekim.com.
I'll make sure all of those links are down in the show notes. Any closing thoughts, Susie?
No, I've really loved this conversation. We've gone, I love that we kind of created a hologram and went to all the different places.
Of course, is what we do here on Dark Mirror. Thanks so much for being a part of the journey, and I'll see you guys soon.
Amazing.